Hi, this is Privateer Station, and this is day 203 of the war in Ukraine. Olexiy Arestovych, advisor to the Office of the President of Ukraine, and Mark Feygin continue their diaries, their conversations about this war, continue sharing their strategic perspective on the events of the last 24 hours. Enjoy. Dear friends, glad to see you all on Feigin Live. It is Wednesday, 14th of September, 9 minutes past 10 in Kiev. We apologize for our technical delay. We were trying to resolve our yesterday audio issues, and I think we are doing a bit better. We were trying to get better. I think we ended in a usual quality, but okay, let's see. Are you here with us, Olexiy? Yeah, I am. I'm looking at the big map here on the screen. It actually is a better setup on my end. Okay, so we continue. Please comment in chat. How's the sound? How's the video? Over 160,000 watching us live. Please click the like button, subscribe to Feigin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych, and to the Privateer Station if you are listening or watching that in English. Alright, let's start. How did the front change in the last 24 hours? There are no major changes on the front, so perhaps we can look deeper into politics and history and other things today. So, Kharkov area, did the front stabilize? It is the same according to Russian statements. They're trying to hold the line. They're concentrating their troops around Svatova. You can see that red line on the right side. It is roughly at about 2 o'clock. Svatova is one of their main defense positions that defines their whole defense in the northeast of Ukraine. They are adding more troops. They're bringing back the ones that they took off for rotation. They're removing ones from other parts of the front, and they're trying to drop them on that line between Svatova and Liman. Because if Ukraine army breaks through, they will literally have nobody to stop them after. So that run, where we continue to move further east, and they're trying to block us somehow with whatever they can scrabble, 2 or 4 battalion tactical groups. It looks like they're trying to band-aid a big breach in Titanic, but anyway, they're still trying. They did one good move. They brought more troops to Liman. It's a very difficult area to defend. Right now there are 2 battalions, 2.5 battalions that they had there are dying, providing cover for them to create some defense. So they're trying to throw more people there, but we'll see how successful they'll be. Do you see on the map from Rubezhne, Troitskaya, Svatova, that red line? That is their main defense line. That is going to be their defense line. It's secondary now, but it likely will become their primary. Another interesting note, on the right bank, they started supplying their troops with helicopters. And those people who know, they know that helicopter is the most expensive and the most ineffective way of supplying troops. So, that was in Kherson. Now, in Kryvyi Rog, they actually attacked a dam, and they're trying to create a wave, to break the dam and create a wave on the river to break some of our bridges and supply lines that was on the Ingulets River. So they hit not a strategic target, but a civilian target. Well, Russian army doesn't give a damn about civilian targets. If they need to kill 100 kids to achieve their military goal, they'll do that. So they, in this case, were trying to block our transfer from the left bank of Ingulets, from the right bank of Ingulets to the left, and basically it does tell us that the crisis on the right bank, on the occupied Kherson side, is growing. And I can see at least 4 areas where they will be suffering heavy defeat in that for that group, and the group will likely be sliced in 4 parts rather soon. Okay, let's take a look at Bakhmut direction. Is there anything there? Because I've seen some reports. Yeah, there are no news, no major news. We understand the war is going, and all the news there are really, hey, we shot the tank there, or that soldier died here. This is very tactical. The struggle continues there on the same positions, and there is no real motion to show on the map. Also, we still follow the concept of do no harm, so we should not be commenting early advancements of our troops if when they occur. Okay, over 200,000 watching us live. About a third of you clicked the like button. Please share links to that stream in your social media so people can join and watch more. So, let's touch another angle here. Zelensky keeps visiting the front. From the very beginning of war, I remember him going even to Severodonetsk, to dangerous parts of the front. He was even awarding medals and orders to the troops. Unlike Donetsky, Putin has not been to the front line. We have not even seen his cardboard cutout out there. And people are laughing, saying that Putin is probably scared shitless to go to the front. I'll tell you an old anecdote in this regard. Old Soviet Union, there is a contest of some music instruments. Some guy from somewhere north, a young dude, brings their native instrument, basically a stick with 2 strings, and plays wonderful things like Bumblebee and everything else on that. People are amazed. And his competitor is also from somewhere up north, and he's playing essentially the same tool, and he does very basic play on that. So the young fella performs awesomely at the final contest, plays the best piece. The whole audience is in the uproar and applauding. So the guy leaves the stage, looks from behind the curtain, sees that old fella who's also to perform his last music, and checks and sees that the guy is very basic, playing something very basic. So the guy, relieved, goes back to his room to have a drink of water. All of a sudden he hears that the older guy won, and then he runs to the commission, gets to them, and in their faces like, how possible? I was playing all that. And he just did his din din din. And he got an answer that you're still searching, and that fella has found. Yeah, he has found, right. So the grandpa is 70 years old, right? Do you think it's his age? It was, even when he was young, during the Chechen War, he never really was traveling to the front. I think it's both. It's age and his innate cowardice. In KGB, they also had, in special forces, they had brave people. Well, Putin, definitely was not among them. He was not the alpha detachment. No, he was from a different group, and he's definitely not one of those who are brave. So I'm not quite sure with his St. Petersburg part of biography, but I don't think he was risking anything much being next to Sobchak, the mayor of St. Petersburg back in the 90s. So I think that's his general character when he manages things from the bunker, and he prefers not to stick his neck out in the front different things happen. Sometimes life changes people, character, or sometimes they just have never seen any big events where they had a chance to show themselves. Lives differ. But Putin knows and he has a bunch of those events, yet he is probably afraid. You think like his own people might finish him off and pretend it was Ukraine? Yeah, I would not exclude that possibility. I understand he's probably afraid of his guard, his doctors, and everybody else in his vicinity. The more harm you do, generally, the more evil you do, the more unethical stuff you do, the more you start to be afraid of things. This is a simple law of life. Even on the very basic level, when a girl is wearing a short skirt and walking in a dark alley, is afraid because psychologically she is a target for hooligan or a rapist. And if the person is hiding behind something and giving orders to send nukes there, send troops there, kill those people, he's afraid of everything deadly. That person, that character is in his half-decay stance, and if you want him to travel to the front, probably not. And also the other side is he's very likely avoiding to give a real picture to his troops, who's the real commander. Oh yeah, that's a very curious part of it, because, I heard he's wearing hidden heels in his boots to look a little higher. Yeah, there are different funny things people do to get taller, but what does it give you? It's like penis enhancement. You can insert all kind of stuff there, but you'll still be the dude with whatever you got. Yeah, if he visits the front, he may actually cause a different understanding, different realization from his troops. If a live Putin will be demoed to his own troops, they probably will just suicide themselves. Not even run away, but really, it's our commander is not even an ass. He's some puny, weird dictator. So yeah. That symbol of macho that was propagandized around the country, that has nothing to do with real Putin. That is actually a strong argument. He needs to hide to just not even show his age. Remember Gaddafi, when he was in his 70s, he was also using plastic surgeons, he was doing blepharoplastics, tightening his skin on the face, similar to Putin. And that famous meeting in Tripoli, when he was in power for 42 years, he was an officer who was part of the coup, and he went to talk to young people. Libya is a very young country in general, so that whole event started because young people didn't even understand what he was talking about. He was talking with slogans of Jamahiriya, of his green book, and the 20-year-olds on the square were speaking basically a different language with him. I can only imagine Putin talking to kids or to his soldiers. Oh yeah, he did actually talk to kids nearby. Remember that joke that went viral about the rubber ass? Yeah, people don't even speak like that. Yeah, you mean kind of like me, who pulls anecdotes from back in the USSR times. And I'm just 47, and Putin is, 70, right? Yeah, in 3 weeks he'll be 70. He's 20 plus years worse. So Russia has two mysteries. Its real history and what Putin looks like in real life, and what he can tell to his soldiers. Imagine he comes to the front and he what? Oh yeah, speaks about the rubber butt. Yeah, imagine him going to any of the danger locations. For example, from two sides. Zelensky came to his soldiers, and Putin came, for example, to Svatovo to support his troops. And here he has soldiers who lost equipment, friends, limbs, and he goes out and tells them what? Starting with content and ending with the style. And soldiers and officers, they do expect their leader to have charisma, to have a push. The speech needs to resonate. The speech has to be religious in its core. and motivational in its nature. He needs to light the fires up in their hearts and send them to battle. I cannot be on the front because I need to lead, but I'm with you. All of your heroes will name a street in your cities after your name. You'll get money, you'll get wealth and fame and honor. But you need to also not just, even if that text would be written for him, you need to pronounce it right. You cannot lie to a soldier on the front because they'll feel it immediately. And what are we waiting? Putin can do that? No. Neither content nor style. That's why he is not even let out to talk to people. And I think he probably doesn't let himself out because it's nice and warm in the bunker. Although I do have a feeling that his photographers are probably the main diversion people in his vicinity. I think they're just spies because they're taking pictures from the most god-awful angles, and he looks horrible in those pictures. But on the other hand, if you think just for a second that they're trying to take a better shot, that this is the most, this is the best picture out of the whole set that they published, with that hairstyle, with weird posture, with him shuffling legs or grabbing table, and hemorrhoidal sit on a chair, then one can only wonder how does he look like in the other moments, if these are the best ones. I'll open you a little picture. These protocol shots, they're the best. Yeah, they're actually enhanced. Protocol pictures are usually the best pictures, and they're always enhanced. So you can imagine how he looks like in real life. Oh yeah, I'm a little bit familiar with that. I get into quite a few pictures too. And yeah, he never meets real people. He meets his special KGB or FSB people who surround them. Then I can only imagine his real looks in life. Yeah, he's a person in decay, a person already in the state of semi-decay, and I wonder how long will people accept him as a ruler. Alright, so Zelensky, on the other hand, doesn't have that issue. He is an actor, he was working with people throughout his career, communicating with people. He's a professional communicator. And he virtually doesn't have this problem. He's not afraid of his army, right? No. He was there even from the beginning. He did not understand army well, in regards that his background did not set him for that, but he learned, he was exploring, he was visiting, and he was curious. He was visiting very hot parts of the front. When he was visiting, he visited actually the hottest parts, and before the war he was visiting his troops every month. And his personal guards are, have a lot of gray hair because he's breaking a lot of rules. So from Izum, the front line is usually 20-25 kilometers. Artillery can shoot real easy, right? But his security services provide certain level of defense. Well, but it's an artillery shell. Whatever they do, they cannot really protect him from that. Well, they probably hide his visits and schedule and everything, of course, but one needs to understand that there are different branches of intel, counter-intel working around that, and you can never guarantee that your efforts will be successful. But he's still doing it. He's still going to visit his troops. Severodonetsk visit, he came to the city that was surrounded from from 3 sides out of 4. And the corridor that he had to pass through was about 12 miles wide. One can shoot through with artillery at any part of that. And nobody could guarantee that he will not run into some Russian diversion group. And yeah, the place that he visited in the city, that was real close to the frontal action. So he's brave like that. He has enough personal courage, that's for sure. His opponents were trying to show him in the light of a clown, of some socialite. And that's the way people very often react. Once you're an actor, it takes a lot of effort to change that stigma, to change that perception that you're a politician, that you're a strong person. People making a lot of mistakes in their judgment. Like Zelensky, they expected that he'll flee at the beginning of war. All they needed to do is look at his life. Remember his conflict with Maslakov, with the Russian comedy club head. He was very stern during that conflict, and you could just look at him. That's the same Vladimir Zelensky. And if you look at his statements during the first days of war, this is the same Vladimir Zelensky as earlier. But if you look at him now, after half a year of fighting, over half a year, he's a very different person. And you can see the difference, you can see the growth, how he flourished when the destiny brought a lot of trials to his path. So he's a remarkable person. He's got enough courage to visit things, and he just doesn't need to be there constantly, but he can visit his troops, and he doesn't have issues doing that. He can make difficult and strong decisions. All right, we have been live for about 21 minutes, 420,000 watching us. About 100,000, 120,000 click the like button. Please share links, subscribe to Feigin Live, Olexiy Arestovych, and the Privateer Station if you are listening or watching that in English. That always helps us to increase the numbers of our viewers. Let's talk about Armenia. They actually requested some assistance from their defense organization, ODKB, on the 14th article. But it appears that Russia just dumped them and is taking a position that we love both Azerbaijans and Armenians, but we don't care. Us personally, we do love both. We want them to not fight, of course, Armenians and Azerbaijan people, but it appears that Moscow is playing the card that they don't want to interfere. It appears... remember the statement of the Armenian leader that our revolution has no geolocational direction, and the situation is rather dire. There are a lot of people who died during this conflict, and there is an intrusion onto Armenia's territory. Moscow is doing nothing. I think it's a complete agreement between Erdogan and Putin. They don't care about Armenia, and they want to replace Armenian leader, and they want to suck them in as the union territory or joint territory to Russia. Pashinyan, the current leader, will likely not go for that, but they'll probably move him away and put Vardanyan instead. That name has been floated around. How do you look at that? What angle, perhaps, it has towards the war in Ukraine? Moscow point of view, their politics in this. I'm very sorry for Armenian people, because politicians representing them, for at least during the recent years, if I would say delicately, they are defending their own interests, not the interests of the people. And this is the country tightly stuck between the neighbors, and they need, ideally, you'd want to be very careful, very accurate in the politics with the neighbors, especially if they're strong. And all the Soviet story that Soviet Union was trying to be there, be present in that territory, it often led to different conflicts, different tensions between people. And Pashinyan, he was trying to play with the party of war at first, and I think this is the wrong path for them. I sincerely wish Armenian people to gauge the real perspectives. that there is another option, the politics of trying to be friends with your neighbors, and I hope they find that intricate path. The worst that can happen to them is if they become part of Russia, if they become closer to that. This will be the worst development out of that situation. And the role of Moscow is understandable here. They've been doing that for the last, actually 200 years, the whole Caucasus situation. One can just think that current leaders in that area, from today's point of view, understand that fighting wars is not the best strategy. And Moscow agreement with Turkey is so obvious, so visible through their actions, or inactions rather. So it appears that Moscow already set them up twice, and now it's the third time in the recent history that they're dumping Armenia and leaving them without aid. Okay, so you're prognosticating a sad destiny for Pashinyan himself and the development of that conflict. I'm not prognosticating here, I'm just sad. His destiny is going to be sad regardless. As a politician, for sure. As a person, perhaps he'll be able to leave the territory and maybe read lectures later. But it's the sad story that they would still not agree with Moscow, with their neighbors, and follow the Moscow tune. Their neighbors actually offered them pretty good conditions and terms early on, partaking in profits, partaking in trade. They were rather attractive options on the table, and then when they refused and Armenia followed the stronger path nudged into by Moscow, yeah, that put them in a very difficult situation now. Okay. Next topic. Scholz called Putin. They talked for about an hour and a half. And German side printed that Scholz expressed his opinion that Russian troops need to leave territory of Ukraine. This is definitely a change in their stance. He probably called right after Macron, and Macron was also making earlier calls, so he probably tried to make another call following up. And he was putting pressure on the Zaporozhye nuclear plant situation, trying to impinge the responsibility for that on Russia. And German side actually printed that he suggested that it was almost an ultimatum. Yeah, they actually used the word ultimatum. Yeah, I'm trying to be more politically correct here, a bit softer here. And we understand he called him after the Kharkov failure, so why do you think this is happening? I think it is because Germans, regardless of how much they're blamed, they gauge the perspectives rather somberly, and they also probably refer to the position of European Commission, and what von der Leyen stated today was another very harsh statement towards Russia. So he's sort of following suit, because that Commission statement surprised me. I did not expect such a hard position from them. And they do have an interesting relation between Germany and all European bureaucracy, the EU level. EU level bureaucracy actually takes rather hard stance on what is happening in Ukraine and what Russia is doing there. So Germany is maneuvering around that. And I do have to give him credit when he visited Bucha back in the day when there were those atrocities committed and we let the first politicians visit the area. People are saying that he did change, that day changed his opinion on many things. And they also started, remember, back in the day that they were talking to Putin, trying to persuade him to make logical decisions to withdraw from certain parts. I think right now they're just trying to keep that process in somewhat control. Because even if the Russian front is folding and they're retreating, if you do not talk to Putin, that situation becomes completely uncontrollable. When they call him, they're trying to convert it into something that they can at least have semblance of control, some semblance of communication and mutual interactions. So remember Macron making so many calls. I think the same thing is with Scholz. He is trying to have some control in that situation. Because right now we've seen how some uncontrollable processes happen in Russia when they were on the front, when they were withdrawing. So there may be more of that happening, and they're trying to inject some level of control into that. It's probably another attempt to create another perspective roadmap for the unfolding of that situation. That perspective is definitely not happy for Russia. As a response to Scholz's statement, Putin continued to rub his hairpiece and continued talking about Ukraine shelling Donetsk or doing something else. That reminded me back days when I was part of that negotiation commission between Ukraine and Russia between the 2014 and 2020, and this was a horrible experience, very useful, but when you see their officials coming and talking about the same used chewing gum over and over again, and then the whole Europe is repeating Putin's statements and Putin's words from time to time, that was horrible. That was rather sad. At least now they're not repeating Russian propaganda, so I think they're evolving and changing their attitude to Russia and Russian leadership. It is actually inspiring to see that position towards Russia being formed in Germany, how they evolve from the country that was 50% dependent on Russian gas. And their politicians were rather corrupt. So now they're getting back to reality and they're actually looking at what is possible in the real life, and they're actually reflecting that in their conversations and statements. I'll tell you that one of the tasks of leadership of any management of any country is not to provide good life for people, is to help people see the real situation. Because very often people rely on some mythologisms and stories that have very little to do with reality, especially in difficult times. So it is important to help marry them with real life. We have 400 plus thousand watching us live. I'm reading the comments. Some people are complaining about noise. God damn it, again noise. Do we have any noise? Okay, we've been 33 minutes live. We'll look at noise and sound after the stream. We'll check what was happening. We'll check with the recording. Okay, United States still consider that adding Russia to the countries sponsors of terrorism would have unintended consequences, and they're discussing other options. It appears that they are discussing that within Congress and administration, and they're looking for some compromise to still be effective, but avoid making that classification. Although Russia, with the recent shelling of the energy plant in Kharkov and other things, they're definitely on the plate for becoming a sponsor of terrorism. Yeah, we would want Russia to be acknowledged as a country sponsor of terror. But Americans did make a clear statement that they cannot do that because they don't want some of their allies to fall, to have a blowback from trade with Russia, as India and China would likely get themselves into, and America wants to avoid that situation. So they're saying that they'll find a way to break Putin's regime's back without that statement. Of course, we would want to Russia to be considered that, but unofficially. But we understand that it is possible to liberate Russia from Putin's regime, even without considering Russia a state sponsor of terrorism. One probably should consider not the country itself, but the regime, Putin's regime, as a state sponsor. Perhaps some special status where the country itself is not recognized as a terrorist, but the regime is recognized as a terrorist regime. That would be some new classification. One could play here with different options for sanctions for the countries who trade with commercial partners and for the countries who trade with regime. So it opens different opportunities. And that's what Americans are hinting at. They can find ways to effectively affect regime's future, even without that status. Okay, so we need to be patient. I think you've seen the video of Prigozhin that was shot in one of the prisons in Russia. Where have you been? You haven't seen it yet. Oh, I'll turn on Feygin and Arestovych later tonight and I'll watch it. Man, there may be issues with sound, but okay. Let's plug that video in so you can see that and catch up on this. Prigozhin, the head of Russian contractors, is talking to prisoners. Private company Wagner. The war is hard. It is nowhere near any Chechen campaigns we had. We're using about 2.5 times more ammo per day than in any of those wars. First of all, no deserters. Nobody retreats. Nobody surrenders. When you'll be training, there'll be a topic about surrendering. You will be given 2 grenades that you always have to carry with you for that case. Second topic is alcohol and drugs. In the battlefront, as long as you're with us, you're always on the battlefront. And third important topic is marauding, including sexual contacts with locals, flora, fauna, men, anyone. Minimal age we take is 22 years old. If you are younger, we'll need a paper from your relatives that they're not against that decision. Maximum age, officially it is about 50 years. However, if you're in good shape, we'll run tests right here, check your condition, and if you're tough and in good physical shape, we can take you. First inmates who fought with me, it was on the 1st of June during the storm of Ugledar power plant. There were 40 people from St. Petersburg, recidivists. They got to the trenches of the enemy. 3 of them died, 7 wounded. Out of the 3 dead, he was 50 plus years old and spent 20 of them in prison. And they succeeded in taking that plant. We do pay attention to why you're in jail. If you are related to any drug activity, we verify if you were user yourself. If we have suspicions, we may ask you to do a poly test. We also understand that if you're here for any sexual assaults, there could have been some mistakes in your life, and we may consider taking you as well. On the front, you'll not be different from our regular troops. You might even be treated better than other troops. We have different kinds of troops in our private army. We have different kinds of support groups. We have several types of jets. We have tanks. We have MLRS systems. We have everything and tanks, and we have everything we need to go forward. Those who are bold and go where we tell them to, they survive longer. Those who retreat, they don't live long. In a few minutes, you'll have a conversation. There'll be several people here who will talk to every volunteer and ask you questions and answer your questions. Everybody who is deceased, the bodies will be transported to the place you indicate in your last will, given either to your relatives. If you have not left one, we'll bury you near the church that we have in Горячий Ключ that is in one of our headquarters. Then in half a year later, you get amnesty and you go back home. Those who want to stay with us, stays with us. So there are no options for you. Don't be afraid. There are no options for you to go back to prison. Those people who come to us and on the first day decide that's not for you, we make a note in your papers that you're a deserter and you get executed on the spot. If you have questions, you can ask them later. You have 5 minutes to make a decision. Here is Yevgeny Prigozhin talking to prisoners, corrupt Putin's oligarch and criminal. Do you have anybody here who's got more than 10 years? 2? We can take you out. That's your path out. That's God and Allah helping you to get out. We try to bring you back live. Any questions? Or did I tell you enough details? All right, 5 minutes to think over this proposal. Make decisions. Who wants to go, goes. So, dear friends, we listened to that recording. It's everywhere. It's not some specific exclusive stuff. But what is interesting? We've been talking about inmates for a while, that especially Wagner inmates, because formally in Russian military, inmates cannot serve. But here you don't even need to confirm anything. This one was filmed in one of the prison camps, and that video is going viral everywhere. Here we can discuss, there are no ifs and buts. We see Prigozhin recruiting inmates to his army. And trust me, procedurally there is nothing to talk about here. As an ex-attorney, I can tell you this is completely illegal. To take them from prison and then let them go after half a year. And if you don't want to serve for half a year, you get executed. Yeah, the laws for the regime, very fitting, right? They disregard any law. So basically that means that they have no people to fight the war. They have 400,000 plus in prisons, so you can collect 10, 20,000 from them rather easily, right? Especially from the ones who are serving for 20, 30 years. And look at him, his position, the way he speaks. I got planes, I got tanks, I got stormtroopers. That's what Russian army is from, right? I don't know if he's stylizing himself to look like Blackwater Prince or somebody else, but he's a liar. He has never served himself, and he's collecting new combatants from inmates. Just wanted you to comment on that trash, and how does that fit into the logic of this war? Will they fight? What will happen to them? Do you have any data from the front lines? Do you guys get any of these characters captured? Well, Mark, first of all, they leaked that video themselves. Why do you think they did it? Well, glory and fame and word of mouth. Um, and just send it out so people at other prisons would consider that that is an option. And the position he takes, if you're a tough man and you obey, you get honor and money. If you do not, you get executed. Russia is power. That's kind of a promo reel. About the prisoners who fight, everyone is good at his own place, right? So when you have 15 people with knives in prison, they're probably a big danger, especially for those who are also in that prison who don't have knife. But on the front, the main things you need is good health and military specialty. You don't get too healthy being in prison in Russia, and you don't get trained in anything military while you're there. So once they get to the front, very likely the war will just grind them and not even notice their presence. But for me, looking at that, I'm just looking at that as the death of an empire. There'll be people who'll actually point at that and say this is the culmination of the defeat of the post-Soviet Russian Empire, because the country that is the member of the Security Council in the United Nations breaking laws so blatantly, the country that has nukes, that is recruiting inmates who made serious crimes to fight their wars. I feel shame for Russia and its citizens, the ones who are against all that. And I also have questions. How can that country be a member of the Security Council of the United Nations? It's hard to imagine worse downfall. I don't even want to go in details of legality of that. The country is completely neglecting their own laws. They're breaking their own rules. They're breaking because they started a useless war. And he did mention, by the way, sorry to interrupt you, that you will get amnesty. Amnesty can only be signed by a president, right? He'll either have to blanketly sign amnesties, but who needs to sign for execution? Oh, that's Prigozhin, that he can sign himself. And I know they execute people. I think that's true. Oh yeah, I agree. And the drugs article he talked about, they were talking about checking if they're druggies or not. So they're breaking the laws, international laws, their own laws. The country that supposedly is a member of UN Security Council, the scientific country, the country that flies to space, the country that started idiotic war that they cannot even do anything with or succeed in. And because probably they had a very wrong estimation of the real life, and their estimation came from their ideas, which were probably as corrupt and as rotten, that led to all that. So they've chosen rotten ideas and rotten ideology, and that's where it takes you. Russia has rotten to the core. Putin is the author of that. Yeah, we've went over 45 minutes today. We're at 49. For such a culmination, I think it's worth it. How are you tomorrow? Are we doing a stream tomorrow? Yep, all good. We're doing that tomorrow. We'll work a little more with the technical side, make sure that everything is good and the sound and picture are good. I appreciate you all viewers being here with us today. Again, please share links, make sure that people who need to see that stream do see that. Subscribe to us, to Feigin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych, and to the privateer station. More details under that video. See you tomorrow at 10 p.m. Kiev time. Goodbye.